So what causes a hiss in the second stage? How to correct it, if you can correct it, and what should you do? Let's deal with that. First of all, let's just reiterate a little bit, Kevin. If you can take a peek, you can see here, guys, that I have a first stage mounted on this tank. So very simply, the second stage it's got a hose coming into it at 150 psi. Now inside the second stage there's a spring, all right, and a diaphragm on the front, and a mouthpiece. And when you want air, you simply draw through the mouthpiece. That draws the diaphragm in, which pushes a lever, which opens, compresses the spring, opens the valve, and you get air. It's just that simple. You take air out of this 150 psi, and then the tank fills it back up, and on you go. So what causes a hiss? Well, now we're going to assume, as we're discussing this, we're going to assume, make an assumption, that the first stage is working properly, that the first stage has been tuned and serviced, and it is delivering air at the proper pressure, 150 for this example. So the first stage is fine. So what causes a hiss? Well, what causes a hiss, very simply, is that if the first stage, which should normally only give air, when you draw on it, I'm pushing the purge valve to simulate you drawing on it, same thing. Somehow that second stage has come out of adjustment. So now, what can I do so they can hear it? There's a little hiss in there. Sometimes it isn't that big. Sometimes it's barely. Can you hear that, Kevin? No. But the viewers can when I do that. Sometimes it's even less than that. All you get is a few bubbles coming out of the second stage. Second stage is hissing a little bit. Now, first of all, let me explain that if the hiss is very small like that, this is not a serious problem. This is not a life-threatening problem. Let's deal with what causes it. First of all, in order to eliminate that hiss and to adjust that second stage so it's perfect, the serviceman uses this special tool right here. You can see this special tool in there. If you can zoom in there for just a second, please, Kevin, right here. From there to there, between my fingers. That is a special tool. That's called an inline intermediate pressure adjuster. We'll call it that. Inline pressure tool. This tool from there to there sits in between the hose and the second stage. This end screws onto the second stage, and then the hose goes into this. So there it goes. It's just a tube. But it's an interesting tube because, as you can see, right now, this is working fine. No hiss. Let's go diving. But in order to make the second stage breathe as easily as possible, the serviceman will put his inline tool in there, and then he will adjust the spring pressure. I mentioned the spring in there. He'll adjust the spring pressure until the second stage is as close as possible to starting the free flow, but not free flow. That is the easiest possible breathing effort. Let me show you. Oh, too much. Back a bit. No hiss. Oh, hiss. Back a bit. And he will do that until the second stage is perfectly adjusted, in his opinion. Now, there are other ways to do this, first of all. And secondly, some dive stores actually there's a special instrument that can be used to measure that inhalation effort and set it using various gauges, Magnelli gauges, and other things. To do it mechanically is not bad and works pretty well. I'm going to take that inline adjuster tool out of there now, if I can. Yep, there we go. Take that out. So here's what it looks like on its own. If you take the inline adjusting tool out, you see, that's it right there. And now we'll replace the second stage onto the hose properly, as it should be for proper diving. So now your first stage, in this case, primary, is working perfectly. No hiss until you breathe on. All right. Now, what about the octopus? The safe second. What about it? Uh-oh. It's hissing. It's hissing. It needs to be adjusted as well. And here's sometimes where the problem comes in, because very often, as is the case with the diver who asked me this question, it says safe second. That's hissing. Very often. What happens, or what's the problem if your safe second is hissing? Well, the problem is very simple. the primary second stage and your safe second are connected to the same first stage, same place. Pressure is the same coming through both hoses, 150 psi. In this example, we've adjusted your primary so it breathes as easily as possible. That's what you want, right? What about the safe second? Well, let's give it a try, see what happens here. So we're going to put now our adjustment tool onto the safe second and give it a try. See what happens when we try to adjust it. Is there a difference? Okay, let's see what happens now. Turn that on. Primary, working perfectly. Safe second. Well, let's try to adjust it. You hear that? So we do the same thing. We're going to adjust it, so there's hissing. Hissing stopped. Okay. They're both adjusted perfectly so that either of these second stages will work easy breathing, work perfectly. And that's the problem. It's just one of the problems. If this is the case, if in fact there is any difficulty at all in the first stage, and the first stage starts to deliver air at a bit higher than 150, one or both of these is going to start to hiss. Now, the minute one of them starts to hiss, that intermediate pressure drops from 150, and the other one will stop hissing. So you really only ever get one hissing. You seldom ever get two hissing. So, how do you solve that problem? In my opinion, and some service people will disagree with me, although this is in many, many factory recommended procedures, once you get the safe second, as easy breathing as possible, turn it about 1/8 of a turn tighter. Not too much. So that the safe second stage, is slightly harder to breathe from. Now, in all likelihood, if you try to breathe from your primary and then from your safe second, adjust it that way, they'll feel the same. You probably won't notice a difference. Your lungs aren't all that sensitive. But now what happens if the first stage is slightly out of adjustment and delivers air a little bit above 150, your safe second won't breathe, only your primary. And that's fine, because that's the rate you're going to be using, and it can be adjusted very, very easily. Anyway, essentially, that's the problem and how they're adjusted. First stage delivers 150 to both second stages. The primary second stage, as I've shown you, is adjusted to breathe as easily as possible, whether it's magnetically this way or on an instrument using gauges, doesn't matter. It is set to breathe as easy as possible for you as a diver. The safe second should be a little harder, almost unnoticeable, probably imperceptible, but it will be a little bit harder. That way, it will not start to free flow, waste air, and possibly cause a freeze up. There's all kinds of things that can happen if it free flows. That's it. So you adjust both stages, as I've suggested, take it up, put it back together, and you're all set to go. Now, if you've done that, and you still get a hiss from your second stage, either one, and it's the first stage, you need to take it in for service. It's very, very difficult for a diver, unless he's trained or very, very knowledgeable, very difficult for a diver to do just the first stage. In most cases, first stages today, anyway, are sealed, take special equipment to get into them, and then you have to adjust to replace the seats and so on. It becomes difficult. Second stages are very simple. A little diaphragm and a flapper and that screw I just told you about. There you go. Hope there's some information there that can be of help. And if you have any questions, make sure you add them to the comments below. Talk to you soon. Alec Peirce, Scuba Tech Tips, here at Dive Source in Whitby. Bye-bye.